By 1995, Alice in Chains was a band living in the shadows of its own success. They had climbed to the top of the rock world, but the higher they went, the darker it got. Their music had always walked the line between beauty and despair, but by the time they began work on their self-titled third album, the pain wasn't just in the lyrics anymore, it was in the room. This is the story behind the 1995 Alice in Chains album, also known as Tripod. But before I do any of that, I'm going to show you my CD, and then I'll get to the whole story behind it. Before I get on with the story, I like to just open my CD and we can take a look at everything inside. Here's the front cover and here's the back. There's a meaning behind these pictures. I'll get into it a little later when I get into the story. And let me open up. Here is the Columbia CD with the Alice in Chains, the yellow cover. And then if we take the CD out, there's some imagery behind there. Hopefully I don't get flagged for that, but I probably won't. And let's open up the booklet. So it opens up like this. It has lots of weird artwork and lyrics, so it's pretty cool. Now you don't really see the band photos in this book for some reason, but there are lots of cool drawings and that go along with the lyrics. I think it just has just lots of lyrics, lots of cool drawing images. It's kind of a dark album. There's some more imagery right there. There's the cover. I'm going to fold this back up, and that's basically it. Let me get back to the video. After the massive success of Dirt in 1992 and the haunting Jar of Flies EP in 1994, Alice in Chains had become one of the defining bands of the grunge era. But internally, things were falling apart. Layne Staley, the band's iconic and tormented vocalist, was in the deep grip of heroin addiction. His struggles were no secret. To his bandmates, the press, even himself, touring had become impossible. The band had canceled multiple shows, and there was growing uncertainty if they would ever make another record. During this period, Layne withdrew from the band and sought another creative outlet. That outlet was Mad Season, a side project with Pearl Jam's Mike McCready, Screaming Trees, Barrett Martin, and bassist John Baker Saunders. Mad Season's Above was released earlier in 1995. It was a very different kind of record. It allowed Layne to explore his pain through introspection instead of aggression. Songs like River of the Seed and Long Gone Day showed a man fully aware of his own decline, channeling it through haunting melodies. But when it came time for Alice in Chains to reunite in the spring of 1995, the mood was different. Guitarist Jerry Cantrell, bassist Mike Inez, and drummer Sean Kinney didn't know what to expect. Layne's absence had been long, and no one was sure if he was capable of finishing another record. Still, they felt that there was one more story to tell, one last album that could capture the band's fractured soul. Recording began in April 1995 at Bad Animal Studio in Seattle. Toby Wright, who had previously worked with him on Jar of Flies, returned as producer, but this time the sessions were darker, heavier, and more emotionally draining than ever before. Unlike previous albums, there was no sense of camaraderie or excitement. The atmosphere was heavy, filled with exhaustion, frustration, and fear. Cantrell would later describe the experience as four guys who were dying making an album about it. Layne's addiction made the progress difficult. Some days he wouldn't show up, other times he would arrive late and disappear again. But when he did sing, his performances were nothing short of devastating. His voice had changed, it was rougher, raspier, but filled with an emotional honesty that cut to the bone. Jerry Cantrell had to step up in a major way. Not only did he handle most of the songwriting, but he also took on more vocal duties than ever before. Their harmonies, once perfectly balanced, now felt ghostly and uneasy, reflecting the cracks forming in both the band and their friendship. Despite the tension, the result was something unique, a dense, suffocating sound that felt like it was collapsing under its own weight. When the album was finally finished, the artwork reflected the weirdness and unease of the music. The cover, shot by photographer Rocky Schenk, featured a three-legged dog on a bizarre and unsettling image that instantly caught attention. On the back cover, a man with three legs completed the strange motif. The band never officially titled the album, leaving it self-titled, but fans quickly named it Tripod. It fit perfectly. The image was strange, scarred, and uncomfortable, just like the band itself at that time. The album opens with Grind, a thick, sludgy track that sets the tone immediately. The lyric, "In the darkest hole, you'll be well advised not to plan my funeral before the body dies," felt like a defiant statement to those writing Layne off. It was a message to the media, the record label, and anyone who thought they were finished. Then comes Brush Away, where Layne and Jerry's vocals intertwine like two ghosts haunting the same space. The production is claustrophobic, the guitars crushing, the drums thunderous, vocals half buried but emotionally raw. Sludge Factory captures the frustration of the album's creation. Layne reportedly wrote it about Columbia Records pressuring the band to finish. Its sarcastic tone and dragging rhythm make it feel like a protest against everything. The industry, the pressure, even themselves. Then there's Heaven Beside You, with a few moments of melodic clarity. Written and sung mostly by Cantrell, it deals with the pain of a failed relationship and the contradictions between love and self-destruction. The acoustic guitars shimmer beneath Jerry's weary voice, and it became one of the album's biggest singles. Head Creeps puts listeners back into the darkness, a twisted psychological track full of paranoia and anxiety. Layne's distorted vocals make it sound like a fever dream, one of the album's strangest and most unsettling moments, again brought by a hypnotic groove and one of Layne's most memorable vocal hooks. The repeated line, "You make me sick," became instantly iconic, equal parts anger and exhaustion, as pure Alice in Chains, heavy, simple, and emotionally loaded. The later tracks, Shame on You, God Am, and Nothing Song, pushed the band into even murkier territory. They're more experimental, sometimes almost psychedelic, exploring themes of regret, identity, and faith. And finally, the album closes with Over Now, sung by Cantrell. It feels like a quiet farewell. It's over now, why? The line echoes like the end of an era. It's both resignation and relief, and in hindsight, feels like the band knew this was the last time they'd make an album together with Layne. Alice in Chains was first released on October 31st, 1995, and then later on November 7th, 1995. Now, despite its dark tone and lack of promotion, it debuted at number one on the Billboard 200, proof that the band's fan base was still massive. Critics were divided. Some called it bloated, grim, and difficult. Others praised its honesty and heaviness. But over the years, the perception shifted. Fans began to see what it truly was, a raw snapshot of the band barely holding it together, yet still creating something beautifully. The band didn't tour to support the record. Layne's condition made it impossible. Instead, the album existed almost in isolation, a product of pain left to speak for itself. In April 1996, Alice in Chains returned for one major performance, their legendary MTV Unplugged session. It was their first concert in nearly 3 years. The crowd's reaction said it all. They were witnessing something fragile and historic. Layne sat hunched, thin, pale, but still capable of delivering breathtaking performances. Songs like Sludge Factory and Over Now took on a new meaning that night. They sounded like farewells. It would be the last time the classic lineup of Alice in Chains played together publicly. After that, silence. Layne retreated into seclusion, rarely seen again. The band would go dormant for years, and the world began to wonder if Alice in Chains was gone forever. In April 2002, the story reached its tragic end. Layne Staley was found dead in his Seattle home, the victim of a drug overdose. He had been gone for 2 weeks before anyone discovered him. He was only 34. It was a heartbreaking conclusion to a story that felt inevitable, yet hit with devastating force. Layne's death wasn't just the loss of a frontman, it was the loss of one of the most haunting and human voices in rock history. His pain had always been part of his art, and Tripod was perhaps his most honest reflection of that path. Today, in the 1995 self-titled Alice in Chains album stands as one of the darkest, most unflinching records of the 90s. It's not an easy listen. It's not supposed to be. It's an album about decay, isolation, and survival. A sonic document of four men at war with themselves and each other. Some albums are about triumph, others about redemption. Tripod is about endurance, the sound of a band refusing to give up even as they were falling apart. Its production is heavy and oppressive, lyrics bleak, but its emotional honesty is unmatched. It's the sound of pain transformed into art, and that's what made it endure for nearly 3 decades. That was the story behind the 1995 self-titled Alice in Chains album, or the Tripod, final masterpiece born out of struggle and a haunting reminder of how close brilliance and tragedy can be. If you want to go back to where it all began, make sure you check out my in-depth review of Dirt, the album that defined the Alice in Chains sound and set the stage for everything that came after. You can find that video right here on the screen. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Tripod and want to see more stories behind the albums that shaped rock and metal, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching. This is JC Rock, the CD and Vinyl channel. I will see you in the next one.